Okay, we should be live now with the new Proline Pro MT 4x4. I'm Pete. We're going to open up this box and see what's cooking. So let's just jump right into it. Although I guess we should probably look at the box first before we crack it open. Good artwork on the cover, but let's take a look at these panels on the side and see what's happening there. So you probably have seen in the post that we've done at RC Car Action and in the teaser video, or the full video that we kicked out on Friday on the Facebook page here, you've got pivot ball suspension with 17mm hexes. You've got front center and middle, front center and rear differentials with Mod 1 gears, that's 25.4 pitch. Hard steel ring and pinion gears and a bi-metal chassis. 6061 T6 aluminum chassis with hardened steel center spine. Tough stuff. You've got an 8-scale style steering rack there with aluminum pivot blocks. Aluminum motor mount system that accepts 110 4x4 and 1/8 motor systems and Mod 1 gears. Again, that's a coarse 25.4 pitch, so you've got extra strong stuff there in the drivetrain. Chassis layout provides ideal weight bias. 16mm bore shocks, hard chrome coated shafts, durable X-ring seals. So definitely a well-spec'd kit from Proline here. This is their first four-wheel drive model. We've seen the Pro Series two-wheel drive models in short course buggy, short course truck, and two-wheel drive monster truck versions, but this is the first 4x4. The body style is pre-cut Sentinel clear. This does come with Badlands tires on F11 wheels. Look at the specs here. This guy is actually about a ½ inch longer in wheelbase and a ½ inch wider than a Stampede 4x4 from Traxxas if you want a size comparison. So it is 1/10 scale. It's not an 8 scale model. It's built 8 scale style, but dimension wise, definitely 1/10 scale. But let's get into that box and see what's cooking here. And I will confess I've already been in here to snip some zip ties and just make things a little easier before I tear into it without fumbling for X-Acto knives and scissors and stuff. But this is what you'll see when you open up the Pro 4x4, Pro MT 4x4 box. And we'll get to the stuff in the bags later. You're gonna get a manual, decals, and window masks and stuff. But let's get right to the star of the show here, which is the truck itself. It arrives with the tires unmounted. You get these nice Badlands on F11 wheels. 17mm hex in there. You can see the bigger axle opening. So some serious rubber right out of the crate. I reviewed these on a two-wheel drive Stampede. They have a great moto look and they move a lot of dirt. So nice tires for sure. As you can see, the truck arrives assembled. I've cut the zip tie so I can lift it out. Let me get this box out of here so that's out of the way. So here is the Pro MT 4x4. As you can see, it's got Proline's secure lock system. Instead of body clips, you've got these threaded guys. And I like these a lot because they don't pop off in a crash or get bent up. And you can buy these caps separately if you do manage to lose one of them, or if they wear out or something happens to it. You can buy these separately. Let's pull these off. And as usual, Proline does a nice job with the body. You've got overspray film on there. It comes with window masks and decals. Pre-trimmed, which is always great. And this will look great finished even just one color, but I'll see if I can spray a couple of colors on there. Not a great painter, I'm a rattle can guy, but truck bodies with these nice smooth slab sides are pretty easy to mask and get a nice looking design on them. So I'll get to that tomorrow. As for the truck itself, yes, Jason, it comes assembled as you see it. And I'll do my best to look at these questions and comments on the phone. It is a little awkward to do both, but bear with me. So you've got an aluminum chassis here, and this, it's hard to see in there, but there's a, this black part is a steel spine that runs the length of the chassis. You've also got bracing over here, and of course the whole steering assembly also serves to brace the front of the chassis. And the chassis is 601 T6 aluminum. You can see the thickness there. Let me push this arm up. So this should be a pretty rugged ride. You have an aluminum motor mount here. And as you can see, it reaches down on the chassis, so it's extra rigid. so that motor isn't going to flex around on you. And the mount does not have any kind of a cam on it. It's just a flat piece of machined aluminum. So to adjust your gear mesh, this whole cradle moves side to side. And when you look under the chassis, you can see these inserts for the motor mount screws, I should say, right here. And these can be flipped around, and there are additional inserts in the parts bag that will preset the gear mesh so that you don't have to monkey with it. Just put in the appropriate inserts for the tooth count or the pinion you're going to use, and the mesh is set automatically. And the truck does include a pinion. It's a 16 tooth, and it's all Mod 1 gear, so you can easily get pinions for this. And in this underside view, you can also see how thick the suspension arms are. It's a 1/10 scale truck, but in terms of the thickness of the arms and the way they're molded, it's a very 8th scale look. Also the turnbuckles, which look to be about 4 millimeters thick in steel. And you've got 16 millimeter bore shocks. These have hard-coated chrome shafts, X-ring seals. It's Delrin pistons in there, so really high-quality shocks. Same type of spec that you see on the Proline Pro Spec shock. So good stuff. Sway bars are installed front and rear. If you look at the Proline website, they show this differential coming out very easily. It's a few screws, and then that cover comes off so you can access the diffs. I think it's 1,000 weight oil from the factory in there, but they are sealed to hold oil, and they come oil filled out of the box, so you don't have to degrease them. Okay, let's look at the front suspension here. We've got pivot balls, and I'm going to interview the design guys at Proline for the review in car action, but I suspect that the pivot ball is there because Proline's really going for a super durable truck with the Pro MT 4x4. And with a pivot ball, you've got this massive plastic molding here instead of a C-hub and a separate steering knuckle. And with this design, the steel balls in there have a lot more surface area than hinge pins would. And as if you've ever crashed an RC truck, which we all have, I'm sure, very often the hinge pin will just kind of rip through the suspension arm. So these pivot balls will be more resistant to that. Then, because the pivot balls allow for up and down movement as well as steering movement, that means you can also flex these backwards more easily, and it's not going to actually break anything. You've got plenty of room there for stuff to move around in a crash. And the steering hub here is designed as with a separate arm in aluminum for the part that actually attaches the tie rod attaches to. 17 millimeter hex hubs. You can see the adjustment there, so you can adjust how much tension there is on that pivot ball and get it just right where there's no play but also no resistance. And there are Delrin inserts in there that actually ride on the pivot ball. And you've got the aluminum cap that holds that in place. Upper arm is fixed because you can just adjust the pivot balls in and out if you want to set track width. You shouldn't really need to though. These appear to be just bottomed out. There's a spacer on the lower one to get the camber set properly, but it's easy to adjust as well. You shoot an Allen wrench in there and you can adjust your camber. You can also see there are inserts for the hinge pins that will set the kick up, and that should also be in the rear to set anti-squat. So while most people will probably just put electronics in this and go ahead and hammer on it, and that's what I'm going to do, there is a lot of adjustability here if you want to really get into tuning this thing up. You can set camber, of course, toe in. You've got your steel turnbuckles on the tie rods and on the camber links. You can set the hinge pin angles. You've got front and rear sway bars to work with. In terms of chassis layout, you can see the front differential is pushed way up here. That way you've got plenty of room for your motor and your speed control on this side. Battery pack over here. And the straps, you can see, are pretty tall there, so there should be no trouble putting a big battery in there, whether you want to go for a whole bunch of capacity or if you want to do 6S. This truck is built to handle it. I'm not going to go that big because it's just too much. I think it's not really fun. You're just ballooning tires and tearing stuff up, and it's fun for a speed run and as a novelty thing, but for regular running, I think 3S, 4S is definitely going to be the way to go for this. Really tall chassis guards here to keep dirt out. What else can I tell you? Sorry there, Almog, David, Cohen, I know you want to go to sleep. This will be available to watch later too, so don't worry if you can't hit it right now. It's full ball bearing, of course. You've got a lot of adjustment on those body posts there. They arrive preset for the Sentinel body, but whatever you want to put on there should be no trouble. If you want to do a tall SUV style body, Proline has longer posts that you can drop in there as well. Overall, fit and finish is really nice. I mean, it's another Pro Series kit from Proline. These things are really well detailed. You can see the servo mount here is all metal. Just first class stuff. Proline does a really good job with these models. So let me grab the manual out of here. We'll see what else is in those bags. So this is a pre-built roller, as Proline calls it. And we've got your details here on installing the electronics. You'll need to get a power system, radio, servo, and battery. And with this size truck, you can use standard 540 size gear, or you can put in an 8th scale style setup. Here's the detail about how that motor mount system works. They do give you a wrench to put the 17mm hex nuts on there. You got some tips on painting the body. Mine won't come out that good. Exploded views. Let's show some of the stuff off there. There's your suspension assembly. And you can see your differential here. You've got 4 spider gears in there. And you've got gasket and O-ring seals. All steel gears for the ring and pinion. And the center gear is molded. These are all Module 1, which is 25.4 pitch. Here's your shock assembly. Looks like you've got a single X-ring in there, like with the Pro-Spec shocks that Proline does. Bladder equipped. The shocks do arrive filled, by the way, and the build job is very nice. Give them a few pumps and they're perfectly ready to go. Here's your chassis. You can see how that spine deal works. More explodes. You've got tuning tips here, which is great. We talk about caster, your wheelbase adjustment, camber, center diff, gear ratios. Like I said, the gear mesh is preset, so that's very fuss-free. And it does include a Module 1 16-tooth pinion in the kit. Ride height, shock location, all the usual stuff that you adjust on a car. Naturally, there's plenty of tires from Proline available for this as pre-mounts. You can get different body styles. This is the Ford F-150 and the Silverado that they're showing here. And nicely done stuff from Proline. We'll take a look in the parts bag. And let's see if we can cut this open. So we've got spare pistons here, and these are 16mm bores, so it's a nice big piston. And that's a Delrin too, so it's very slippery and slick, nice action. These look like extra links for the not the dog bones, the sway bars. I should mention the truck does not have dog bones. In front, you've got CV style shafts, if I can get in there. You can see that there. And it looks like this design uses the bearing to capture the pins, which is always nice. And you've got them in the rear as well. All right, back to the bag. Here's your wrench for the wheels. Some really thick horns here for the steering servo that you install. And these should be 23, 24, and 25 spline, I would think. 25, 24, 23. So whatever you've got for a servo, you'll be able to use. Here are the axle nuts. You can see they're serrated so they won't loosen up on you. Inserts for the gear mesh setting system. Got some foam padding, some additional hardware. There's your pinion. It's set up for a 5mm shaft. And you've got your motor mounting hardware. Another truggy, says Jerry. I wouldn't really say that because it's 1/10 scale, and you can make a 1/10 scale truggy, I guess, but we tend to associate that term with 1/8 scale models. And this is very definitively 1/10, and not just 1/10 because of the body size. The chassis is also roughly tracks the Stampede 4x4 sized. It's actually got a 1/2 inch more wheelbase, about a 1/2 inch more width, so just a little bit bigger, but definitely a 1/10 scale truck, which I really like because as much as people like 8 scale, and I do too, a bigger model is going to be more expensive. Also, typically you're running 2 batteries instead of 1, so that's extra stuff to buy, extra charge time. It's a larger model, you need more bench space to work on it, you need more space to run it if you're going to run them the way they really should be run. So 8 scale is great, but I think 10 scale, at least for me, is the perfect RC size. It's big enough to be impressive, small enough so it's easy to live with, big enough that it can take on all kinds of terrain, especially if you've got a monster truck. So I'm really looking forward to this one. I think Proline really did a good job and got it right, going 1/10 scale with the Pro MT 4x4. No apology, Jerry, needed. Thanks for piping in there, though. It certainly looks like a truck. I mean, you can't really see the scale on your screen, so yes. And that's a big plus, is that it's built like a truggy as far as thick molded parts. It's going to take a lot of abuse. And because it is molded like it's an 8 scale vehicle, but it's 1/10 scale, that means the arms are shorter, everything, all the parts are a little bit smaller because they're 1/10, not 1/8, which means it's just less leverage on those parts to break them when you hit stuff. So between the pivot ball design, the extra thick molding, and look how big that lower suspension arm is. This should be a really tough truck, and I know Proline took pains to make it very durable. They're not looking to make a lot of money selling you spare parts. They want you to run the truck and have fun with it that way. I'm sure they'll be happy if you burn up a bunch of tires, though, which I'll certainly do. Brushless, obviously, the way to go, and I'll probably do a 1/8 scale style hand talk power system with probably 4S power. Like I said, you can do 6S, but it's just too bananas. I don't think it's really fun for all-around driving. It will take a 550, 540, or 8 scale size motor, Dennis. So any kind of power system really that you want to put in there for 1/10 or 8 scale should fit. Is it junk? No, Heath, it's definitely not junk. Proline's done a really nice job with this. Pete, shout out Chris Chianelli. Yeah, we sure miss Chris Chianelli. Chris was great. I really enjoyed working with Chris, and I'll pour one out for my buddy because he was a super cool guy. Is it still tracks the space and low center of gravity? It is like a 8 scale buggy or a truggy in that you've got a plate chassis and it's not lifted. These arms are drooping pretty low, but if I set the arms, basically axles level, you can see that it's a low slung truck, and that's why Proline's got these big side guards here, not just to keep roost out, but that way when you've got the body on there, you don't just have the chassis hanging out way below it looking goofy like a High Rider Corvette from the 80s or something. Let me get this body. So when you've got the body on, those side guards will fill in that gap. It's not available just yet, Heath, unless things have changed to Proline. It is $425 right now at Proline.com, but I don't think it's shipping yet. I don't think you need to upgrade it, Sean. I mean, you've got 16mm bore aluminum shocks right out of the crate. Sway bars are on it. It's got steel turnbuckles, which I'm going to say are 4mm thick. It's full ball bearing. You've got an aluminum motor mount, aluminum steering servo mount. I mean, you could put titanium turnbuckles on instead of steel, I guess, and there's probably even fancier shocks you could put on there. It's got CV-style drive shafts right out of the crate. So I don't know what kind of big swipes you need to make as far as upgrades on this. You can dress it up with, colored hardware and stuff, I'm sure, but I mean, out of the box, it's ready to go hard for sure. Yeah, the tub will also keep stuff in that flies in there. But you know what? It's shaft drive, which is great. So you don't have stuff fouling up a belt. And that's why all of these cars are typically shaft drive. And you can see that the back of the chassis is just open. So anything that collects should also slide back out. But any vehicle like this, between runs, when you're making a battery swap, I always just turn them upside down, give them a good shake, and all kinds of stuff falls out. And that stuff won't be getting into your gears if you give it a good shake out. I don't know how long before it's released, Heath. I got to ask Proline that. I'm sure they want to kick them out as soon as they can to get you guys hooked up. You know what? I don't have a motor recommendation, but the manual does. So let's take a look at that. I don't know about spring rates either. They feel firmish, and keep in mind I'm also working against a sway bar. So when I move one suspension arm, you can see the other one goes up a little bit. So that's going to increase the feeling of firmness and also decreases body roll. But they feel pretty firm. It feels like it's definitely set up for big air and hard hits. You know, Gordo, I should have thought to grab my Stampede two-wheel drive truck. It's the size of a Stampede 4x4, which means it's also about the same size as a Stampede two-wheel drive. Okay, now we wanted to look at motors, so let me flip to that page in the manual here. All right, so here's your motor and gear ratio info. Let's see, internal gear ratio is 4:1, and the included Model 1 spur gear is 44 tooth with a 16-tooth pinion. When using high-powered 1/8 motor systems and 4S LiPo power, Proline testing has found motors in the 1900 kV range to be best for using the full range of gear ratios available, which is 14 to 21. There you go. According to Proline, it's very easy to get to the diffs. You pull out a few screws, and then the diff opens, kind of, clamshell style to let the diff gears out. And if you go to proline.com and look at the pages for this car, they've got photos of that diff coming out. So it's smaller than the Slash 4x4, but bigger than a Stampede. That's true. The wheelbase and the width are about a ½ inch bigger than a Stampede 4x4. The wheelbase is 11.2 inches, or 284 millimeters. So that is going to be shorter than a short course truck, which I think are about 13, which is just normal. That's just how big short course trucks are. So this is 1/10 scale monster truck. It's not significantly bigger or smaller than any other 1/10 scale monster truck that I can think of. At least as far as trucks that are 1/10 scale all around, not just a 1/10 scale body, and then they put a giant chassis under it. It does include wheels and tires. You got Badlands. Let me open these up. So here's your Badlands tire. This is probably my favorite Proline tire because it looks like a motocross tire. And they move a whole bunch of dirt. The F11 wheels look great. You can see a big opening there because you've got a 17 millimeter hex. And as usual, Proline does a great job. Bodies and tires, you're not going to beat Proline. And the truck really matches the quality of the body, wheels, and tires that Proline does. They have not skipped any beats there. Yeah, they are aggressive. These are good. And naturally, running on the street tends to chew up your knobs, but when you've got a really big knobby like this, these guys actually hold up pretty well. It's not like a pin spike where you run around the neighborhood a few times and it's a slick. Yeah, great job. Matt Wallace is right. I've got to interview Matt and find out about his insights on designing and getting this truck out the door. And here's that Sentinel body again, which is kind of hits all the greatest hits of modern truck styling. And because it's not officially a Ford or a Chevy or anything else, that also keeps the price of the truck down a little bit. Not that it's inexpensive. I mean, it's a $425 model, but you're getting top-notch everything. This is not a truck you're going to be upgrading anytime soon. At least not because you need to. If you want to put stuff on there, great. But out of the box, it's really got everything. Optional parts. I'm not sure what Proline would offer for an option on this. I mean, they could do stuff like aluminum suspension arms, aluminum shock towers, and dress-up-y kind of stuff. But I can't point to anything on the truck where I would say, oh yeah, that's something I would change. Maybe Robinson will do a steel spur gear or something like that, but it's really well equipped. I don't think there's any spot I would immediately jump to. These hinge pin brackets are machined aluminum. It's got the sway bars, aluminum back here too. You've got the CV drive shafts in there. Plenty of adjustment on the body post. It's got the secure lock system instead of body clips. And it's really got everything. Let's see. Let's take a few more questions if you got them, and then I'll wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed checking out this truck. I can't wait to get it up and running, which will be pretty quick since it's pre-assembled. I do like to build a kit from the ground up, but I got to tell you, it's nice sometimes to get out there quick. And probably does a good job on the assembly. The shocks feel good. The suspension doesn't feel like it's binding up or anything. I'll give it a good once-over while I'm putting the electronics in, but I think Proline's done a good job. I will run it like I stole it. Jim Rowe, thank you. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap it up. This is the Proline Pro MT 4x4. Arrives assembled like you see it. Body, wheels, and tires are included in clear. You're going to have to supply your own battery, power system, steering servo, transmitter, and receiver. $425 right now at Proline.com. About a ½ inch bigger in terms of wheelbase and width than a Stampede 4x4, which I would say is the standard for a 1/10 scale size 4x4 monster truck. 60mm bore shocks. Like I said, sway bars included. 601 T6 chassis with a steel spine, steel center drive shaft, oil-filled diffs, all the stuff you really want in a professional grade RC vehicle. But that ought to do it. I hope you enjoyed this. We'll do more of these Facebook Live things. I do have a G-Made GOM, or Goom, but the new G-Made truck coming together on the bench. We've got Tamiya stuff to build. I've got some other projects I'm working on, so there's plenty of stuff for Facebook Live. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys hanging out, and we'll do it again real soon. Thanks a lot.